Rosie Cadman. So if you've never met her, I know Michael said he saw her the last day of her life. She lived to be 99. Now, if you want to look at a video about her, the museum made a video about Rosie Cadman about a year ago. They originally asked me to set it up because I've known her literally my entire life. I was born here in 1947. She came here in 1945. My parents came here in 1946. So I've known her. She's my Catalina mother, or was my Catalina mother. So you may want to pick that up. You can get that on, look it up on the internet, and you can see her story. Now, when they were showing her story at the museum, they made a big deal about it. And she asked me, please be at my table because, you know, you're family. Well, the table was completely full. So I said, don't worry, Rosie, don't make room for me. I went to another table. For some reason, at the beginning of the presentation, I went completely deaf. I couldn't hear anything. So they had to rush me to the ER, flush my ears out. So I never did get to see that video, so I want to see it myself. Now, when they wrote, when the newspaper wrote a story about her, her life lived, they said that she was born in the Middle East. Well, that's not right. Her family was. She was born in Boston, Massachusetts. As far as I know, she never made it to the Middle East where her family was from. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her. By the way, there were 4 things that were the most important to her, so you get a little idea about her. Number 1 was Jesus and God. Number 2 was her husband, Earl. Number 3 was her family. Number 4 was cooking. So now you have a little better idea about her. Now, every time she invited me over to the house to eat, she always said, can you ask Bill Bushing to come? Now, Bill Bushing was my best friend. He died a couple of years ago. Are you familiar with Dr. Oh, you look like you're shaking your head. So I began to get the feeling that she really didn't want me there for dinner. She wanted me to get Bill Bushing there. So, but anyway, now she was a believer, so I'm sure she knows exactly, I know exactly where she is right now. Bill wasn't, but he's very surprised now to know that he and Rosie are now together. She's cooking for him all the time, so they're both very happy together, which is nice. So how the story sort of begins is she was a waitress in San Pedro, and her husband Earl was a abalone fisherman and a lobster fisherman, and he was in the restaurant and she served him, and he looked right at her immediately and said, I'm going to marry you.
Hello. Welcome, gentlemen.
And she said, I don't even know you. And he said, don't worry, you will. I will marry you. So she said that was pretty presumptuous, but anyway. So he had a large container of fish that got blown. Oh, here are the elders. They're the LDS elders. Do you have a chair?
Yeah, they're good.
So this is Elder Watson and Elder Rodriguez.
Hello.
They belong to the church that I belong to, the LDS church. So anyway, he had a large container of fish that somehow got blown over the pier. and she dove in to save the fish from being eaten by the other fish. And he said, right at that moment, I proposed to her, and she accepted. So in 1945, because he was working for the military, procuring fish for them, the island was completely shut off from the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941 to 1946, when my parents were allowed to come here, but they came here a year earlier, and they lived just down the street from us. Now, I've been trying my best to think of stories that nobody else knows about, so I'm going to tell this one. And I don't think she would mind if she was here. It's a very funny story, but it's typical of Rosie. As I said, they were lobster fishermen. And my father and my brother and I would order, he would bring a big gunny sack filled with undersized lobsters, okay? And they were illegal, but we didn't care, we got a whole bag of them.
Non-regulation. Non-regulation.
Yeah, they weren't regulation at all. Now, he was taken to court because the Bureau of Fish and Game found out about him doing this. So they took him to court. Now, we lived just up the street from them. And they asked my father to be on the jury. And Dad said, I'm sorry, I can't do it because I'm his neighbor. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when they left, Dad would laugh and said, well, I can't very well be on the jury. I'm the one that's getting his undersized lobster. So he said, I can't do that. So this is what happened. This is what happened that's so indicative of Rosie. So they were at the trial, and they were trying to prove that they were getting illegal lobsters. So they asked Rosie to come up and give her testimony. Well, nobody knew what she was going to say. I could have told them, don't get Rosie on the stand, because she's going to tell it the way it is. Mm-hmm. Okay, so she was on the stand, and they said, what did you do when you were on the lobster boat with your husband Earl? And she said, I would be looking out for the fish and game boat. And they said, well, how did you know what the fish and game boat looked like? She said, oh, I got very used to it, because my job was, as soon as we saw them coming toward us, was to throw all the illegals over the side. Well, that, of course, caused such a commotion in the courtroom. Everybody was laughing, because a wife cannot give testimony against her husband. Well, they didn't know that she wasn't going to be doing that. So the prosecutor and the defense attorney were laughing so hard, they threw the case out. They felt that she was so honest, there's no reason for us to have a jury. We'll just throw it out. And so she saved her husband and everybody else, especially those of us who were paying for the illegals. Now, if you go to the lobster trap, find the owner, Caleb, because he did a very, very nice thing. Now, Rosie told me, how much time do we have?
You have about 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'll make it quick. Rosie told me on her 99th birthday, I don't want a birthday. I want to wait till my 100th. Well, she didn't make it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Her 100th would have been on May 7th, 2025. Well, Caleb, who is a great friend, decided to have a surprise party for her. So he threw a party for her on her 99th. Neither he nor she knew that was going to be her last birthday. And she told me it was such a wonderful, 75 people were invited. I wasn't invited, but that's okay. But, anyway, it was a wonderful turnout. She told me about all the food they had, and then they had a big reception for her up in the casino ballroom. He also catered most of that food. So anyway, if you go to the Lobster Trap, write a note to Caleb, or say, if you see him there, tell him thank you for what you did for Rosie, because that was such a wonderful thing. So I think my time is up.
Good.